This is Access Ann Arbor.
Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. My name is Dr. Mary Newton, and I am the CEO of Serenity Home Care and Rehab Services. March is Brain Injury Awareness Month, and the Brain Injury Association of Michigan diligently works throughout the month to bring awareness to the needs of individuals with brain injuries and to their families. Joining me here today is Tom Constant, who is the President and CEO of the Brain Injury Association of Michigan. We have Dr. Colin King, who is the Director of the Neurobehavioral Program at Rainbow Rehabilitation Programs. And we have C.J. Tehan, who is an author, an educator, and the mother of not just one, but two children who have suffered brain injuries in their youth. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before we get going today, we're going to show you a short video of three remarkable individuals who have not just survived brain injury, but have thrived after it. Their stories and the stories of their families are an inspiration to anyone who suffers a tragedy in their life and how to overcome that tragedy. Let's watch.
Let's get this party started.
Is it on straight now? Is it on straight? She ran out of glue last week. It almost blew off.
There are certain people who seem to appreciate every breath more than most. People who overflow with gratitude for life.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Because they came so close to losing it.
Because I have, I'm gonna cry. Just because I have such a loving family, so many friends. My name is Scott Graham Dingwall, and I'm 27 years old.
My cousin Scott was in an accident when we were 3 years old. He was hit by a drunk driver.
We were hit by two young men who had been drinking and celebrating, and they were instantly killed. And Scott received a life-changing spinal cord injury.
He sustained a brain injury. He sustained a spinal cord injury at C6 with no movement from his arms down at that point, and he was also unable to breathe on his own.
It happens in an instant. It changes your life totally.
It impacts everyone who's involved in their lives.
Scott is one of the estimated 200,000 people in Michigan living with a brain injury.
I had a serious carbon monoxide exposure at our cabin in northern Michigan.
I came in and found him and called 911.
I don't remember the next 3 months.
Jim's situation was very catastrophic.
The Petoskey ER room figured out that he had CO poisoning. The advice from the doctors at Spectrum was that we should take him home and put him on hospice care, which we did.
When someone's family is being told, to contact hospice, that's as grim as it gets.
You had to see him. He was on a ventilator. His eyes were both moving in different directions. He had no quality of life, and so we certainly didn't want to extend that.
The first time that I looked at Jim, I recognized how significantly impaired he was, but I also saw that there had been evidence of progress, and I really did feel that we could build on that.
It was funny. I didn't want the children to have false hope, so I didn't tell them that he opened his eyes for me. But he had opened his eyes first for our son, and he didn't tell us. And then he opened them for our daughter, and she didn't tell us.
Fortunately, she contacted the Brain Injury Association.
She said, there's just a quiet team that is there for you if you need us.
That quiet team is the Brain Injury Association of Michigan, a network of care providers ensuring patients like Scott or Jim get the services and support they'll need.
How many reps?
But it isn't just for the patients, it's for the families as well.
The Brain Injury Association is a wonderful organization in helping people for resources, for support.
People have great opportunities and great potential if we can get them the resources they need, the equipment they need, the support they need.
I will support them in every way that I can.
These are people who know being in Michigan made the difference.
My son was injured on Crooked Lake up north near Petoskey in a jet ski accident. He was T-boned and was in a coma for 3 days. And I can tell you that drive up was the drive from hell. I knew one phone number on I-75, and that was 1-810-229-5880, and it was the Brain Injury Association of Michigan. 4 years later, he is a freshman at Michigan State University in the Lyman Briggs College, struggling like hell, as any college freshman does, and I owe that to what was available here in Michigan.
Michigan is a very special place. To be in a state where you know if something happens, you have a support team that is not just your friends and family, it's a system that's been built to take care of you for the rest of your life. That's something that's very valuable. I don't think you can put a price on it.
We have the resources in our emergency rooms, we have the resources in our hospitals to help people with catastrophic injuries and not put our hands up and say we don't know what to do, because in Michigan we do know what to do.
But it's more than just our Michigan hospitals and doctors.
No Fault has given Scott the medical equipment and services that he's needed for, 25 years now. And if we had not had those, my husband and I could not have afforded to take care of all of his needs.
Without No Fault, his family would be obviously bankrupt trying to pay for all those things.
Through the Brain Injury Association of Michigan, these patients found the care and support they needed.
You've got to be as aggressive as you can in that early care to get as much of the brain function back. Dr. Perlman was very good at that.
Dr. Perlman's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Gave me a second chance. I wouldn't be here today without him.
When I come downstairs every morning and I say, "Scott, how are you?" and he says, "I'm awesome." How could you not be anything else but awesome also?
He can be hooked to 10 IVs and tell everyone he's having an amazing day.
Just his smile. Gosh, he can just rock the world with that smile. And anyone who meets him remembers him forever.
The only time I'm not really happy with my life is during the winter, but I think we all feel that.
What touched me the most about Jim was that he was so motivated, and we were able to provide him the resources and expertise to enable him to achieve his dreams and goals.
I learned how to walk and I learned how to drive. I'm back at work. In addition to driving, I downhill ski in Vail, Colorado 2 weeks ago with the twins.
When people have opportunities and the right resources available to them, it's amazing what the human body and the brain can do. Makes me feel great, because that's what I'm here to do.
I have loved you for 1,000 years. I love you for 1,000 more.
Wow, that was very powerful. Tom, you were in that video with your son.
Mm-hmm.
You were the parent that got that phone call.
Mm-hmm.
You talked a little bit about it in the video. Tell us more about what it felt to receive that phone call and what you did right after.
Well, it was one of the worst moments of my life. It's one of the worst moments of anyone's life as a parent to receive the call, as my wife and I received that day, that said, "Come on up." And I think, as the video expressed, it was the 3.5-hour drive from hell. About halfway through that drive, we received a call from the hospital, and they said, "Are you on your way?" "Yes." "Pull over." We pulled over. They said, "Have you pulled over?" "Yes." "Turn off the engine." And at that point, you think the worst. It turns out that was protocol. As many people drive up I-75 to Petoskey from downstate, they want to make sure, for the safety of the individuals driving, that they've pulled off for whatever news they're about to hear. And ours was immediately after that, there was evidence of shearing, and I knew what that meant, having worked on behalf of the Brain Injury Association for 7 years before this happened.
Yes, you were already working for this.
It was a very surreal experience for me. And my next call, because I knew the 800 number, 444-6443, my next call was to my client, Mike Dabbs, who at that time was the president of the Brain Injury Association of Michigan. And I said, "Mike, I need help." And from that moment on, as my son went through the course of his treatment and recovery, the safety net that is the Brain Injury Association of Michigan began to avail itself to myself and my family. And a week and a half later, when my son was being discharged from the hospital to go downstate, They told me, you know, you have a choice of a number of facilities within the state of Michigan. And I knew this to be a fact because knowing what the state of Michigan offers in terms of treatment services and rehabilitative care, I had a number of facilities across the state to choose from. And I ended up with the choice of 3 facilities within 30 minutes of my house.
Wow.
And I know in any other state, you don't have that kind of option. You might drive hours away. You might drive to another state or 2 states away, as Gabrielle Giffords, the Congresswoman from Arizona, needed to do. She ended up having her treatment in Texas, 3 states away. Well, in Michigan, because of the broad, deep network of treatment services we have here, we're fortunate to have that. And so for 3 days a week, 4 hours a day, my son had treatment at Beaumont in Troy. And it did not disrupt my life like it disrupts so many other lives around the country.
That's wonderful to hear. And if you're going to go through a tragedy, I think having the resources you need as a parent and to take care of that child is key.
Absolutely.
So tell us more about what is the Brain Injury Association of Michigan?
Sure.
How does it help individuals and families with brain injuries, and more importantly, even the Michigan public at large?
Sure. Well, I know this because I personally lived it. And the Brain Injury Association of Michigan exists as that conduit organization, if you will, between survivors and their families and that network of treatment services and rehabilitation facilities that I described earlier. We are the connection. So for persons with brain injury, not knowing where to turn, where to go, who need help, who need hope, our number is the number to call, and we can put them on that path and connect them to the appropriate individuals and treatment services.
There's certain missions that the association has, and how does it accomplish those missions?
We do. We accomplish our mission, which is to increase the access to care and reduce the incidence of brain injury through education, through advocacy, through support, treatment services, and research. On the support end, we have 20 chapters and support groups around the state, including right here in Ann Arbor, which you are the administrator of. Thank you very much. And those chapters and support groups serve on a grassroots level in their respective communities to assist brain injury survivors and their caregivers re-engage into their communities, to kind of find their new normal. And so that's what we do, and they meet on a monthly basis. In terms of education, we host every September in Lansing the largest brain injury conference of its kind, a 2-day conference in Lansing. For advocacy, we have a broad advocacy agenda in Lansing. We're there every day, if not every hour almost, it seems like. The biggest initiative we spearhead is the effort to save no-fault and save the care that's enabled through the Michigan no-fault insurance system. There's no question that it needs reform, and we're among the many groups out there calling for reforms. But those reforms need to be fair and balanced. They need to be bipartisan, and they need to attack fraud on a holistic level because it exists. However, it cannot be at the expense of the immediate care afforded accident injury survivors. And that immediate care is what No Fault provides for as long as necessary. And that is so crucial to the approximately 34,000 individuals that are currently in the No Fault system. Some 1,800 of those are catastrophically injured. So that issue is literally for them a matter of life and death and quality of life. But we also have other agenda items like sports concussion. We were instrumental in the development of Michigan's sports concussion law. We're advocating for a Michigan brain injury law and a brain injury Medicaid waiver. So that's the agenda that we have in terms of advocacy. Treatment services, we have, I mentioned before, that vast, deep network of facilities here. We have the most CARF accredited, and CARF is an acronym much like the Good Housekeeping Seal of Approval, if you will. We have more CARF-accredited facilities, programs, and professionals here in the state of Michigan than 33 other states combined.
And that's incredible.
It is incredible. We are head and shoulders above most of the other states in the country in terms of rehabilitative services and treatment for brain injury.
And you know, I as a professional would like to thank you and everything you guys do with the Brain Injury Association of Michigan. Your services are indispensable. And moving to CJ, I know that you are not just caregiver, you're an educator, and you're an author. You wrote the book, Karen, which is about the caregiving experiences for your daughter, Karen. You call it Karen Awakening. You have another child who has a brain injury who is currently still in the rehabilitation process and in a specialized treatment setting. But Karen has been able to move on and gain independence and have her own life. But let's talk about what it was like for you from the get-go to find out that you're going to be a caregiver and that your daughter was in an accident.
Well, from the get-go, she was in a coma, obviously, and we were told that we couldn't be told what was going to happen. This was back in 1989, and at that point in time, we weren't saving too many people from head injuries. This was just the beginning of that. It was, I think, the start of the Biami as well. So we couldn't get any assurance from anybody that she wasn't going to live on in this vegetative state. And I understand that. You know, you don't want to, as a doctor, make a promise that you can't keep. So there were some pretty tense moments there in that first week while she was in the coma. And then as she was emerging from the coma, we found signs of happiness, signs that we could just be overjoyed about and say, wow, look what she just did. She moved her big toe,
Which is huge.
Which is huge. And then there would be days that the doctors and the residents would come and go, and they couldn't make any comment because she was just lying there doing nothing. So there were the sad days and there were the happy days, and as parents, we didn't know what to expect. If it took a turn for the worst, we got to thinking, well, this is it. This is the beginning of the end. Now she dies. You don't know, because it's something that you haven't prepared for. It's not one of those things that you can be educated for normally. So I cried. I was crying one day, and along came Dr. Farhat, who was her neurosurgeon. He saw me crying, and he said, CJ, brain injury recovery is like the sun passing behind the clouds and then coming back out again. There will be bad days and there will be good days. But eventually, in the long haul, there will be plentiful more good days and the bad days will decrease in number.
That's wonderful. I'm sure you found that to be very motivating.
Oh,
and comforting.
absolutely. I did, because I had no idea that it was normal to have a great day wiggling your toe and then another day when you did absolutely nothing.
So eventually you brought your daughter home and you became her main caregiver. She went to therapies and she had other help, but you became her main caregiver.
I did.
What things do you do to take care of yourself so that you can continue to be a good caregiver for your daughter?
All right. Well, I wasn't very good at this, but I guess ultimately I was good at it. I wasn't good at setting aside time for myself, and I think that's something that every caregiver has to do. You have to make yourself a priority, because if you aren't healthy and you aren't emotionally healthy, you're not going to give your loved one anything profitable. It's not going to be good. So I would advise anybody who's a caregiver to set aside from the get-go something that you're not going to give up. If you like to go to the gym every day and work out, that's what you need to do. Figure it out. Get somebody else to come in and sit with your loved one while you go to the gym, because that's important for you. Me, I'm a writer. I just like to write. So I found my solace in just sitting by Karen's bedside when she was sleeping and just writing. I didn't do that to write a book. I never had any intention of writing a book. I did that because it was something calming to me, and that was my outlet. But other people who aren't writers, let's say, or readers, will have to find something else and make that a priority. I think it's important for every caregiver to have respite time, and you can get that from people who volunteer. They'll come to you and they'll say, what can I do for you? Ask them. Say, are you available for 3 hours on Monday afternoon? I want to go do this.
And that's important.
It's
very important to be able to ask for help. Were there times that you asked for help?
Were there times that I asked for help? Yes, there were. But I would like to say that that some people will just tell you, this is what we'd like to do for you. And if they do that, accept. You'd be surprised at the things that are offered. The an AT&T friend of ours volunteered to put in a second line so it could be a dedicated number to the doctors. And we didn't have any problem using our regular phone. There was always that dedicated line. The person that she worked with provided a tape recorder. I had always rebelled against tape recorders, but now we needed one because we needed a message on the tape every day about Karen. Lots of things like that. And then there are other people who will come to you and they'll say, anything you need, just let us know. Just let us know, anything you need. And usually the human response is to say, okay, thank you. Just pray. We're happy you're thinking of us. But don't do that to them. Those people who are saying to you, anything you need, they're saying that from their heart, and they need to help you. You're in a bad position, you're their friend, and they want to help. So reach within yourself and find a way that you can get them to help. So one lady comes in, actually this was during the injury for my son some years later.
Yes, you had her do something she did something very special for you, and what was that?
Yes, well, we had been through all this with Karen, so now here we were with Matt, and Alex, or Matt, he wasn't going to be the same story as Karen. He had frontal lobe injuries and a shear injury to the brainstem and all kinds of diffuse injuries. So he wasn't going to come out with the language problems that Karen had, but he was going to have his own issues. And the doctors were trying to tell me that it wasn't hopeful. It really was not hopeful.
But this person did something that was unique.
She did. She said, what can I do for you, CJ? And I said, Michelle, you're such a good seamstress. Would you just make me a shirt? Because this doctor is driving me nuts. And I want to wear a shirt that says, I believe in miracles.
Wow.
And boy, did it work. Every time I wore that shirt, he'd be walking toward me, and then he'd turn around and walk the other way.
And when, you have special days when you wear that shirt, if I'm not mistaken.
I do. It's sort of like a medal because both of my children have made so much improvement. I wear this every year on January 29th, which was the day of my daughter's accident, and I wear it every year on it was January 28th and the September 29th, which is the date of my son's accident. It's a very special treasure to me.
CJ, thank you so much for sharing that treasure with us.
Yes.
It's inspiring to hear you speak about your children. And again, the words in your book are just very inspiring to all of us who have read it.
Thank you very much.
So we've heard from a caregiver. We've heard from a person who does a lot of advocacy in our state for individuals with TBI. We're going to move to a healthcare professional. Dr. Colin King works for Rainbow Rehabilitation Centers, and he's been in the field of brain injury for almost 20 years. Dr. King, what does the term brain injury mean to you?
Well, even before I answer your question, I have a sort of a model.
I see that.
Of the brain. And the brain is this fascinating computer. It weighs only about 3 pounds, but it has about 1 billion neurons and 1 trillion connections, more than the stars in the universe. And the frontal part of the brain is what sort of guides decision making. It's like your supervisor, your decision making person that tells you when it's okay to engage in an activity or not. And this brain is sort of housed in a very tight box called the skull, and with very sharp edges. And because the brain is so delicate, it has the consistency of butter. So almost any insult to the brain could cause a brain injury.
I see.
There's also anoxic brain injury, which is when there's a deprivation of oxygen and blood flow to the brain. That can also cause a brain injury.
I'm assuming in your 20 years experience, you've seen many brain injuries that have come across where you work in your facility. Are they all, the outcomes of those recoveries after we've seen the video, are they similar to what we see in the video? Are all outcomes about the same if we seek treatment? What is it that we can expect from recovery?
You know, I have treated hundreds of brain injured patients, and every one of them has been special to me. And I say that sincerely. I've learned so much from my patient, but every single brain injury is different. It depends on the age of the person. It depends on the person's personality. It depends on the extent of the injury. It depends on the resources that they have available. It depends on family support. You know, CJ told two very compelling stories about her two children. So every injury is different.
So then the outcomes might vary as well based on those, and could it also vary based on when the person came to seek help?
Absolutely, absolutely. There are so many patients who have sustained brain injuries, and for one reason or another, they have not sought medical help or psychological help. And so it is so critical to seek help as soon as possible, to be screened by specialists. Michigan, I believe, has some of the best resources in the nation in terms of psychiatry, in terms of physiatry. You know, these are doctors who manage physical medicine. They're speech therapists, they're occupational therapists, they're mental health therapists, they're nurses. I can go on and on and on.
Case managers.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So the consequences, your title is the director of the neurobehavioral program at
Certainly.
Rainbow. So what are some of the consequences of brain injury that you work with specifically?
Sure. So what we have seen post-brain injury, we have seen an upsurge in substance abuse.
Oh.
Again, because in a number of cases, the frontal lobe has been injured. So sort of like the supervisor is not home. Hence, the person may tend to make decisions that are not of the best, such as engaging in substances, sometimes illegal substances. We've seen a number of those cases. Then, you know, there are psychiatric issues. Research is showing now that after brain injury, perhaps up to about 45 to about 50% of the patients develop psychosis, whether it's depression. The rate of suicide is almost 3 to 4 times higher in the brain injury population than in the normal population. There's criminal activities. There's acting out behavior. There's so many issues that surface after a brain injury.
And would you say that being in an area of specialization like you are, that it's important that the person seeking the treatment get it from a professional who understands brain injury?
Absolutely. What I tell patients and I tell family members, don't stop seeking out the best resource for your loved one. You are entitled to that. You need to give them a fighting chance. And usually within the first 6 months to 12 months, those are like prime time when resources should be given to that person. Because the brain has this just amazing ability to heal itself, to regenerate and to develop new neurons. So treatment is critical in the recovery of a brain-injured person.
Thank you. And on behalf of the Brain Injury Association, I'd like to thank all three of you for joining me here today and helping me bring awareness to this silent epidemic of brain injury. If you or your loved one might have experienced a brain injury, please seek immediate help. The sooner you get to a trained professional, the better your outcomes are, the better you have a chance at full recovery. If you are experiencing recovery from a brain injury, or if you are a caregiver to someone who has a brain injury, please call the number on your television screen or visit our website. We are always here to answer the phones and provide you with the hope and the help that you need. Thank you.
Thank you.